There are many people out there who watch horror movies, they love serial killer documentaries, and consume true crime content on a daily basis. Anyone watching this video is a part of those people. However, some people take it way too far. They develop an unhealthy fascination for the disturbing, dark, and twisted minds that commit some of the world's most heinous crimes. And sometimes these people act out on these disgusting fantasies and take their violence out on unsuspecting innocent lives. That is what happened to Bobbi-Anne McLeod. What happened to her is unfathomable, but her story needs to be told. But before we get into the case, I want to say a huge thank you to Colin Broom for partnering with me on today's video. Now, our gut health is so very important for your overall well-being. A lot of people don't realize, but your gut health plays such a huge role in your energy levels, your concentration, and how you feel throughout each day. That is why I've been using Colin Broom to support my gut. Colin Broom's prebiotic fiber supplement is made of 95% psyllium husk powder, which is a bulk-forming soluble fiber that softens your stool and promotes regular bowel movements, helping you to flush your gut and leaving you feeling lighter and more comfortable. I am someone who has struggled with my gut health for literally my entire life. I've suffered from cramps, low energy, and my stomach honestly just never feels quite right. I try my best to eat a balanced diet, but it can feel impossible to keep track of everything I eat to ensure that I have a healthy gut balance, along with everything else I worry about with getting my protein intake, my macros, my vitamins, minerals, and all of that. But thanks to Colin Broom, it is so much easier to make sure that I am getting what I need for my gut. Colin Broom's natural fiber content nourishes your gut bacteria, supporting healthy digestion, which also helps to reduce hunger and promote fullness. Due to its high fiber content, Colin Broom can also help to manage cardiovascular health when paired with other dietary and physical activity interventions. Now, Colin Broom is so easy to add to your diet. Colin Broom's sugar-free, gluten-free, vegan, and non-GMO digestive supplement uses the natural plant-based sweetener stevia. So, even with no sugar added, it still tastes amazing. I like to drink 1 scoop each morning with my water. I have the strawberry flavor, which is my absolute favorite. I love to have something sweet first thing in the morning with my eggs, so this is an absolute delight to add to my morning. Since adding Colin Broom to my everyday diet, my gut feels much lighter. I can concentrate longer because I'm not worrying about my stomach hurting, and I have more energy, which is so important to me because I'm a very active person. So, right now, Colin Broom is offering a special Black Friday deal for viewers of this channel. When you follow the link in my description box below and head to colinbroom.org/RachelShannon, you can get 65% off of your order, plus an additional 10% off when you use my code Shannon10. Once again, that's 65% off when you use the link down below, plus an additional 10% off with my code Shannon10. Make sure you get yours while supplies last. Thank you again so much to Colin Broom for partnering with me on today's video. With all of that being said, let's get into today's case. Bobbi-Anne McLeod was born to her parents Adrian and Donna, and she had a brother named Lee, and her family lived in the Layham area of Plymouth in England. She was described by her family as being beautiful, kind, and loyal. She lit up the lives of everybody who knew her. She was a best friend to so many people. She was popular and loved by everyone who knew her. She had a very close-knit, supportive family who did what they could to show each family member how loved they were. Bobbi-Anne's favorite music was alternative rock, and she was known to be artistic and creative. She was motivated, and she knew what she wanted out of life. She was in college at the time with hopes of someday becoming an interior designer. By Saturday, November 20th, 2021, 18-year-old Bobbi-Anne left the home that she shared with her family at around 5:45 p.m. after telling her father Adrian that she loved him. She was heading out to catch a bus so that she could visit with her boyfriend, Louis. She went to the bus stop on Bampton Road, right down the street from her house, about a 4-minute walk away. The plan was to take the bus to the city center where she would meet her boyfriend. While standing at the bus stop at around 6:05 to 6:15 p.m., she was noticed by witnesses just standing there at the bus stop, looking up and down the street, waiting for the bus to come. She stood there, she took a Snapchat selfie of herself and posted it to her story with the caption that she was freezing cold at the time. However, Bobbi-Anne never made it to her destination. She never arrived to the city center, and she never saw her boyfriend that evening. And by the time she was supposed to return back home, she didn't show. Literally an hour after Bobbi left home, her parents were a bit suspicious because she literally was always in communication with them while she was out. Then, by 9 p.m., Bobbi's boyfriend called her family asking them if she was still at home. Of course, that really panicked the family because she was supposed to have been with her boyfriend that evening. So they started calling around to different friends who could have also been with Bobbi that day, but literally nobody had seen or heard from her after the bus stop that day. Bobbi's brother, Lee, also tried calling her cell phone multiple times to see if she would answer his calls, but all of his calls were just going straight to voicemail. So her family reported her as a missing person, and from there, the searches, as well as the pleas for her safe return, began. They searched all across different areas of Plymouth, on ground and by helicopter. A Facebook group was started to spread information about her disappearance, attracting more than 13,000 members, all with the common goal of finding Bobbi. For the 3 days that followed, they searched all around the bus stop, the wooded areas, and anywhere else they could think to look. At the time, there were witnesses who saw her at the bus stop, like I said. Nobody thought that anything seemed out of the ordinary. She was just waiting for the bus. She wasn't acting bizarre or seemed to be freaking out or anything like that. There was no reason to think that she would have left the bus stop and just ran off on her own. She literally looked just like any other ordinary person waiting for the bus. Something that was concerning, however, was that I believe only about an hour after Bobbi was last seen, a witness who actually saw Bobbi at the bus stop found that she had left her cell phone and her AirPods at the bus stop. The witness gave these items to the bus driver, hoping that they could be returned to their owner, but this really concerned Bobbi's family and the police because they knew that there was no way that she would have just left the bus stop without her phone. And even if she just forgot it, like that's happened to me before, where I'm like sitting on a bench or sitting on a chair, I put my phone next to me, I get up and it's not there anymore when I go to grab it. But most people are grabbing for their phone pretty frequently, especially if you're just sitting on a bus. The first thing you do is sit down and take out your phone. So even if she did forget her phone, she probably would have gotten off the bus at the next stop and then went back to the bus stop to get her stuff and then got back on the bus and went to her destination, because she probably wouldn't have wanted to go to the city center and meet her boyfriend without her phone so that she could text him like, hey, I'm here. So by that point, police were going off of the theory that maybe she was abducted from the bus stop because, again, there's no way she would have just left her stuff there. There was also no reason to think that she would have run off. Like I said, she had a very close family. She loved her family. There was nothing else going on in her life to make anybody think that she would have wanted to leave. That same night, police took to the media to ask anybody who knows anything about where she could be to come forward and let police know what they know. However, the investigation into Bobbi's death, they searched for days and they couldn't find absolutely anything. So they thought that this was going to be a very long, grueling investigation trying to pin down what happened. But the investigation would be a lot shorter than what they expected, and not for a good reason. Only 3 days after Bobbi went missing, a man calmly walked into the Plymouth police station at 1:30 p.m. on November 23rd wearing a face mask and a high-vis reflective jacket with his arms behind his back. He told officers that he thinks that he is the one they are looking for. He is the one who murdered Bobbi-Anne McLeod. This man turned out to be 24-year-old Cody Ackland. Cody Ackland was the lead guitarist and a songwriter in an indie band named Rakuda. He also worked as a valet driver. Well, the same day that Cody entered that police station, he had been working a shift as a valet driver at a Plymouth garage. But around noon that day, he just up and left his job without saying anything to anyone, never to return again. After that, he sent a series of strange text messages to different family members and friends. He wrote a message to the Facebook group of the band that he belonged to saying, "I love you guys." He also texted his mother saying, "I love you and I love the children." Of course, these random professions of love did concern the people he was sending them to, especially his mother, who he never just randomly sent messages like that to, so people were a little bit confused. But after doing that, he headed straight to the police station, still wearing that reflective vest that he wore for his valet job, and asked if he could speak with a detective. That is when he confessed to the murder. So the person at the front desk called down a detective and then led Cody into a side room to wait for the detective. While waiting, a staff member at the police station said that Cody was nervous and fidgety and looked to be very pale. When the detective finally sat down with Cody in that room, immediately Cody said, "I did it. I was responsible for it. I won't be any trouble." He said that he wanted to confess so that he could save Bobbi's family the trouble of an investigation and not knowing what happened to her. He said that he was solely responsible, that nobody else was involved. According to the detective, as he spoke, he was calm and relaxed. He did show a degree of emotion, with his eyes welling up with tears a little bit, but he didn't actually cry, and he showed no other emotion throughout. From there, the police interview continued. Cody gave information about where her body was dumped. Of course, police had been extremely concerned for her well-being and were desperately searching for her. So, when he gave them this information, they immediately sent officers to the location that Cody described to not only see if she was actually there, but to see if there was any way that they could possibly save her. So, they were led to a wooded area near a beach in Bobbi-Anne. The area was full of dense shrubbery, but they combed through and they searched until they found her. And there, exactly where Cody said she would be, officers discovered the naked, badly beaten body of 18-year-old Bobbi. She was lying face down in the dirt, and her injuries were described as catastrophic. Officers reported that she had over 14 lacerations to her head and face. She was clearly deceased at that point, so there would be absolutely no way of saving her. She was actually beaten so badly that she was unrecognizable, and it took dental records to actually identify her. It was pretty obvious at that point that Cody was the one who murdered her. I mean, he told police exactly where her body was and what happened to her. So, after finding her body, the interview with officers continued. Cody ended up telling the detectives that he tends to overthink a lot, and that on the evening of November 20th, he was wound up and needed to get out of the home. He said that he was driving around the area in Plymouth looking for trouble, but not looking for anybody in particular. And that is when he randomly happened upon Bobbi-Anne at the bus stop at around 6:15 p.m. that night. He said that he noticed Bobbi because she reminded him a little bit of one of his past girlfriends. He said that he parked his car at the bottom of a grass bank behind the bus stop. He grabbed a claw hammer, which he claimed he always kept in his car to fix dents. Then he walked along the path behind the bus stop before just striking her on the back of the head with that claw hammer, suddenly and without warning. After hitting the tiny, petite, 4'11" Bobbi, he said that their eyes met, but he hit her over the head once again. As she was lying there, he said that this was supposed to be the end of the attack. He didn't want it to continue after that. So he decided to walk away and leave her at the bus stop and started to walk back to his car, a red Ford Fiesta. However, as he was leaving, he saw her starting to move again. For a moment, he thought about bringing her to a hospital, but he was afraid of getting caught. So when he came back, he shoved Bobbi into the front seat of the car, into the footwell. He sort of shoved her in the area of the front seat where you would put her feet. It was reported as the front seat, but now that I'm saying it out loud, it makes more sense that he would put her in the back seat, so I'm not exactly sure which is the case, but reports say that it was the front seat of the car. With Bobbi's body in the car, he said that he drove around for about 19 miles before arriving to a parking lot at the Belvedere Forest at around 7:45 p.m. There, she told him that she was scared, and to that, he responded that he was scared too, that he had never done something like this before. He proceeded to hit her in the head with the hammer multiple more times, causing brutal and nasty injuries to her head and face in what was later described as a prolonged, frenzied, sadistic attack. He described how after he hit her multiple times, she was still breathing and still making noises. He was surprised that she still survived the attack and had not yet died after hitting her so many times. In the police interview, it was reported that he said, quote, "It's not funny, but she started to make a noise, and I thought, effing hell. Wow. I mean, hats off to her." Then, after hitting her with the hammer multiple times to make sure that he actually murdered her and wouldn't somehow leave her still alive, he ended the attack by stomping on her neck to suffocate her. After the attack, and when he was sure that she was dead, he placed her into the trunk of his car and then drove an additional 25 miles to Bobbi-Anne in Plymouth. There, he stripped her down out of the clothes and jewelry she was wearing and then dumped her body, rolling her down a 15 feet deep bank in an area of dense shrubbery and trees. This was by around 9:15 p.m. After committing the heinous, vicious attack and dumping her body like it was trash, Cody left the area and went home and went to bed by 10 p.m. The following day, he drove to the village of Tamerton Foliet and threw the hammer he used for the attack into a river. He also burned her purse as well as any other items that he noticed had blood on it or could identify Bobbi. Next, he threw her clothes into an allotment a few miles away from where her body was dumped. Police did eventually find a shoe that belonged to Bobbi. The shoe did have her blood on it. Then later the same day, after dumping her clothes and the following day after the murder, he went and hung out and partied with some friends. Police later spoke to the friends that Cody had been with after the murder, and they all described that he was laughing, joking, hugging people, being social, and acting completely normally that night. Nothing seemed off about him. He drank at the pub, ordered some pizza, and had a grand old time. After that, he went to a practice session with his indie rock band. That entire time, friends said that he appeared very happy, like almost too happy. It was unusual for Cody to be in such a great mood during what they thought was a normal day. The only time that they'd ever seen Cody that happy was during one of the band's gigs. The following day, on November 22nd, he went to a movie theater to see a sci-fi film by himself. Cody said that the murder wasn't really on his mind when he was going about his day in the 3 days that followed Bobbi's death. He said that it was so out there, so extreme, that it felt almost like a movie or a fantasy, not something that really happened in reality. He said that he didn't know how he felt about the murder. It almost felt like somebody else committed it. But he obviously knew that he was the one responsible. Based off of this information, police learned that Cody, a man who had no previous history of violent attacks or any sort of criminal activity for that matter, literally no interaction with police, just suddenly decided to brutally, viciously, and violently attack and murder an 18-year-old girl. Then he seemed to get gratification from it. He was in a great mood. He was happy and laughing after it all took place. However, what Cody would not tell police was why he did it. He offered no explanation, no matter how many questions police asked. He would not say what his motive was, why he chose Bobbi, or why he chose to murder her the way that he did. He did say that there was no sexual motivation for the attack, and that was actually confirmed because there was no sign of rape or sexual assault to her body. He told officers that he stripped her of her clothes to hide her identity, not for sexual gratification. So that could be true, it could be false, but the evidence does show that she was not sexually assaulted. This all just seemed like such a random occurrence and so odd that somebody would come in and confess right away. So obviously, police did continue on with their investigation. They looked into his car, which is where they believed the attack took place, and they found tons of forensic evidence. There was blood all over the place, in the car, in the trunk, and under the car, all that did belong to Bobbi. Then, in Cody's home, they found that the shoes that he was wearing on the day of the murder, They too were covered in Bobbi's blood. Then they did a forensic examination of Cody's cell phone, and that told investigators some interesting things as well. The location data from his phone did match the story that he was telling from the day of the murder. Where he was when he found Bobbi, where he attacked her, where he later dumped her body, and where he later dumped her clothes. However, I do want to note that the hammer that was used in the murder has never been located despite police's best efforts. Then, police also looked into the contents of Cody's phone, and that is when things get very disturbing. Police uncovered 3,216 images on Cody's phone described as disturbing and dark nature reminiscent of horror films. They found that he was deeply interested in gruesome images that showed that he had deep-rooted fascination with death, murder, murderers, and the way that serial killers commit murders. On his phone, he had extremely graphic images of dead and dismembered people, bodies of other murder victims, pictures of dump sites, and artifacts linked to murders such as weapons and bloody items. He also had images of various serial killers and videos of historic missing persons appeals made by U.S. police. Investigators went on to state, quote, "There are numerous images of the American serial killer Ted Bundy and his telephone and images of weapons he used to kill his victims. Bundy approached his victims in public spaces and knocked them unconscious before killing them. It is not a coincidence that Bobbi-Anne McLeod met her fate the same way." Along with the disturbing images found on his phone, they also found internet searches relating to various serial killers and their methods. Internet searches were made for killers such as the Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo Jr., Ivan Milat, Fred West, and Tommy Sells, and there were also searches for images of their victims' bodies. Investigators stated, quote, "He appears to have led a secret life, operated clandestinely, and his offending has come as a major shock to those who knew him best. I've certainly asked the question around prevention, but I'm convinced that this happened without warning and nobody could have recognized the level of risk Cody Ackland presented." He continued saying that Cody carried out the, quote, "sadistic and prolonged attack to satisfy a fascination to imitate the crimes of notorious serial killers such as Ted Bundy." He went on to say that they have yet to see any remorse being shown on Ackland's part despite numerous opportunities for him to convey how sorry he is around the killing of Bobbi-Anne, and nothing has been made clear to the family around what remorse he might or might not feel.
Ackland acted with a level of ferocity, brutality, and he acted in a manner that was a personification of sadism. The brutality and the prolonged nature of that attack upon a lone 18-year-old young woman who was just over 5 foot, who was significantly under 7 stone, defies belief. As does the fact that he's shown no contrition, shown no remorse, and has not even approached making any form of apology to Bobbi's loved ones. He's refused to give us a level of detail as to what his motivation might have been. He's avoided questions in relation to what drove him to such horrific acts. He appears to be blaming absolutely everybody apart from himself. And the way that he's acted, in my experience as an investigator, it's exceptional.
At this point, investigators were still very confused about the entire thing. Yes, he had committed the murder. Yes, he had a sick fascination with serial killers. But it was very, very rare for people with absolutely no criminal history to escalate to murder so quickly. According to friends and family, there was no trigger that caused this. People around him all said that he acted completely normally and showed no signs that he could snap like that. Everyone in Cody's life is shocked at what he did. They did also ask that members of the public come forward if they know of any other incidents that Cody may have been involved with when it comes to assaults to other women. He could have committed other crimes and nobody has connected him to it, and obviously he hasn't confessed to those ones. But otherwise, as far as police know, he went from 0 to 100 real quick. So, after making his confession to the police, he did actually plead guilty. Because of that, there was no trial. However, they did have a sentencing hearing where the prosecution and defense made their arguments regarding Cody's motive, the brutality of his crime, what led to it, and his background that could have contributed to the crimes. Obviously, the prosecution talked about this sick, disturbing obsession with serial killers, the fact that he chose Bobby so randomly with no warning, and how brutal the entire attack was. It was a prolonged, torturous attack. They wanted the maximum sentence for this sick, twisted monster. But his defense came in with a little bit of insight into Cody's past and what could have contributed to his disturbing mindset. Like I mentioned earlier, investigators said that Cody never gave a real explanation for why he did what he did. He refused to give any details about his motivations and avoided answering any questions about why he chose Bobbi-Anne, again, except for saying that she reminded him of an ex-girlfriend. However, he did mention that he had a bad childhood and suffered from trauma. His defense attorney claimed that he was diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, depression, and anxiety, and by the age of 19, he had 7 years of a depressive history. By the age of 7, he was deemed as being special needs, and by the age of 9, he was contemplating suicide. His defense attorney continued that he had not received much comfort from either his home or school life growing up. Neither his father nor any of his other male role models provided anything that could give Cody a good foundation for how to live his life. They said that he led a sad and isolated life from a young age. He was someone who is self-absorbed, but not in a narcissistic way. He doesn't love himself, he loathes himself. He grew up to absolutely hate himself. He was angry with the world, angry with everything. They said that he did seek help at some point, but he wasn't the best at speaking with counselors because he didn't feel comfortable talking about the details of his life. He continued that Bobbi-Anne's murder was, quote, the culmination of everything that has gone on in his life stemming from childhood. Ah yes, the old childhood trauma excuse for grown adults committing disgusting, gruesome murders. It was because of what happened in his childhood. As if he does not have free will and does not have any decision-making skills as a 24-year-old adult. The defense argued that his obsession with murder and serial killers was because of his mental health struggles. They said, quote, psychiatrists characterize it as a kind of self-harm, someone who has developed an addiction to seeking out material, going back to it again and again. Cody describes it as self-medicating. If he can shock himself, he might shock himself out of what he felt he had become capable of doing. They argued that in the days leading to the murder, he felt the storm clouds gathering and felt incapable of addressing them. But none of what the defense had to say is any excuse for what Cody did to Bobbi-Anne. It was a disgusting, brutal, heinous attack on a small, petite young girl who didn't stand a chance against a grown man with a claw hammer. With all things considered, at the sentencing hearing, the judge decided that Cody Ackland would spend life in prison with the possibility of parole after 31 years. With a case like this, though, the prosecutors say that he will most likely spend the rest of his life behind bars, and I do sincerely hope that he does.
The disappearance and subsequent murder of Bobbi-Anne McLeod sparked an outpouring of grief in Plymouth last year. Now her family has been given some comfort, knowing her killer will spend a minimum of 30 years behind bars. But the court case was tough listening, with the judge even warning it would be difficult. Last November, Bobbi-Anne went missing from a bus stop close to her home in the Layham area. 24-year-old Cody Ackland was lying in wait. He attacked her from behind, then loaded the semi-conscious teen into the footwell of his car. He drove 20 miles to the Belvoir Forest car park, where he killed her with a claw hammer, before driving 30 miles to Bobbi-Anne, where he left her naked body in underground. Police said there was no known link between Ackland and Bobbi-Anne.
My belief is that when he left his home address, he had an intention to kill, but to kill anybody. Not necessarily Bobby, not necessarily a woman, but somebody that he thought he could get away with.
Today the court heard the local guitarist had led a double life and had a morbid fascination with serial killers like Ted Bundy and Fred West. There were more than 3,000 disturbing images on his phone and extensive searches for weaponry.
Cody Ackland had no previous history with Devon and Cornwall Police or was not on the police national computer. He had a secret obsession of the macabre and of a morbid nature. And no matter what work, he had never come to any agency in his life around this secret obsession. So it is a truly rare event that has occurred. Again, a tragic one, and unfortunately the loss of Bobbi-Anne's life.
Of course, after the death of Bobbi, her family and friends were all left with such a massive hole in their hearts, such a gap in their lives that can never be filled. This was genuinely such a senseless murder for the most random of reasons. Someone who was just randomly out there who happened to spot Bobbi of all people and took whatever anger he had for whatever reason out on her. It's awful, it's devastating, and it's absolutely senseless.
She was the best daughter, the best sister, and the best friend to so many people. Everybody who knew Bobbi loved her. We've been robbed of our beautiful girl in the worst possible way, and our lives will never be the same without her. I want Cody Ackland to know that he has taken away our world. We will never see her beautiful face or hear her laugh, see her get married or have the children that she so wanted. So many everyday things have been taken away. Her not being here is still unimaginable. Our lives have changed forever. We've not been able to say goodbye to Bobbi-Anne, and we can only imagine the things that he did to her. The thoughts are continually going around in our minds. Why Bobbi-Anne? Why make her suffer? To know her final hours were spent being tortured destroys us inside. Bobbi-Anne was so loved and had so many life plans. He cruelly ripped that life away from her and us. We can't even contemplate a future without her in it. There will never be anything the justice system can impose that will ever come close to what he deserves.
But that is all of the information that I have on today's video. Again, this is such an awful case, and I'm happy that Cody got a life sentence, and I hope that he will never see the day of light ever again. I obviously am also happy that he confessed to this murder and was able to get the case solved pretty quickly, but police have said that they were confident that they would have solved this case regardless of whether he confessed or not, and honestly, who knows what his real reasons were for confessing. Maybe he did feel bad and really did want to save Bobbi's family the stress of not knowing what happened to her. But based on what police have said and the fact that he showed no remorse and wouldn't say why he did what he did, it's possible that he only confessed because he wanted people to know that he was a murderer. He wanted people to know his name and what he did. Again, he did have a sick fascination with serial killers, so maybe he wanted to be known as a killer. But we can't say for sure. That's what I personally think, but now I want to know what you all think. Why do you think Cody confessed? Why do you think he committed the murder to begin with? Do you think that this case would have been solved without the confession? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts that you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn that notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure you follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also linked down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.